So, whatever happened to what some people consider the absolute greatest classic Universal monster horror film ever made, 1935's The Bride of Frankenstein? Let's find out.
Movies, music, and monsters. Danger, danger.
Hey my friends, Dan Monroe here, talking about movies, music, and monsters. Welcome my friends, and welcome to my haunted mansion. Halloween is fast approaching, and what better way to celebrate the season than with a classic Universal monster movie, The Bride of Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
The 1935 American Gothic horror film, and, more importantly, the very first sequel by Universal Pictures to the original 1931 Frankenstein, directed once again by James Whale and starring Boris Karloff as the monster and Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein, but this time with a few brand new characters thrown in on top for good spooky measure. The strange and somewhat comedic character of Dr. Pretorius, and of course, the bride herself, played by Elsa Lanchester.
Fun fact, The Bride of Frankenstein only appeared in the film for less than 7 minutes.
Yeah, but she got the entire movie named after her. Great agent.
Now, for those of you who have never seen The Bride of Frankenstein, which I'd be a little bit surprised if you hadn't, this film takes place immediately after the events of the first film, where Henry, the creator of the monster, has decided he's had just about enough of this whole creating life thing and simply wants to be a happily married man. Good luck with that, eh? But ends up instead getting blackmailed by his old mentor, a rather queer-looking gentleman, as Henry's housekeeper says, a certain Dr. Pretorius, not to mention the fact that the monster, of course, survived the fire at the end of the first film, and now is in need of acquiring a ton of Cord-Aid cream, but more importantly, a friend of his own, a mate, or in this case, a bride.
Couldn't they just shack up together? They could have bought that burned-out windmill for pennies on the dollar.
Woman, friend, good. Will somebody just please pull my power pack?
Now, keep in mind, and this was really a very unusual mindset to have, especially in the 1930s, Universal considered making a sequel to Frankenstein as early as 1931, the same year the first film was released, and the director, James Whale, didn't really want to do a sequel at all. He felt that he had squeezed the whole idea dry on the first film, but after Whale's incredible success with The Invisible Man, Universal just wouldn't take no for an answer, so they bribed him. They said, listen, if you do the sequel to Frankenstein, we'll let you go off and make another film that you want to make called One More River. So Whale somewhat reluctantly agreed and set off to direct The Bride of Frankenstein.
What is it with the title of this film anyway?
What do you mean?
This film is called Bride of Frankenstein, but most of the posters and lobby cards say The Bride of Frankenstein. What gives?
Most likely the printer got paid by the word.
Anyway, screenwriter Robert Florey wrote a treatment for the sequel called, if you can believe this, The New Adventures of Frankenstein, the Monster Lives. Pretty cheesy title, and the script was immediately rejected. So, a Universal staff writer named Tom Reed wrote another treatment called The Return of Frankenstein, which was the actual title they were going to go with right up until the point where they started filming. But director James Whale strikes again, claiming that this particular script, after he finally read it, and I quote, stinks to high heaven, so new writers were assigned. The director hated their scripts as well, so in 1934, Whale himself brought on his own writer named John Balderston, who returned to something that happened in the original novel, where the creature demands that he must have a mate. I don't know how many of you have actually read the original novel, but in the book, Dr. Frankenstein did create a bride for the creature, but destroyed it without actually bringing it to life. But the director didn't like this version either.
Holy neck electrodes, Batman. What's with this guy anyway?
I suppose he was, shall we say, an unusual gentleman.
Well, that's certainly one way to put it. Anyway, the project was then given to two playwrights to essentially combine all the elements of all the other versions into one, and that's what they went with, submitted for review in November 1934, and thank goodness, this time, finally approved.
We really need to address this Dr. Pretorius guy.
Yeah, one thing I remember even way back as a kid when I used to watch this film from under the covers was the fact that I truly thought that this film was more or less a comedy. The dark and serious tone of the first Frankenstein seems to have been set aside for this lighter, more humorous adaptation with the creation of the little king and the little queen in the glass bottles. Yeah, cool to show off your special effects, but I just thought it was done so silly with the squeaky little voices and then the mini character, again primarily used for laughs throughout the course of the film, was truly, in my opinion, the Jar Jar Binks of this movie.
I agree with you, sir. It wasn't science. It was more like black magic.
There's someone or something at the door. My sensors indicate that Dr. Pretorius is here.
Pretorius? Dr. Pretorius?
Get Dan a throat lozenge. Stat.
Some sources claim that both Bela Lugosi and Claude Rains were both considered for the role of Pretorius, while other reports claim that the role was specifically created for the actor Ernest Thesiger, and even though other actresses were considered for the role of the bride, it was decided that Elsa Lanchester would play the role again. The director absolutely insisted on it, too, and I guess I never really noticed it before. Pretty dumb, but I didn't. She also played Mary Shelley during the opening prologue of the film. Lanchester was married to the distinguished British actor Charles Laughton, who you film fans may remember played Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Captain Bligh in the 1933 classic Mutiny on the Bounty with Clark Gable.
Mr. Christian, get below, you scurvy knave.
Don't quit your day job.
Fun fact, the hissing noise that the bride makes was actually Elsa's personal contribution to the film, basing that sound off of the hissing of swans, which actually gave her a really sore throat while filming that entire hissing sequence. Now, Colin Clive, who played Dr. Frankenstein, had a bit of a, shall we say, drinking problem during the making of the first film, which had only gotten worse by the time that this sequel rolled around 4 years later. That's a lot of bending the elbow, but the director felt there was absolutely no way to recast that role due to his, and I quote, hysterical quality, and this is super interesting. As we all know, the monster speaks in this film, but that was something that Boris Karloff strongly objected to when reading the script, feeling that the idea was simply, in his own words, stupid, arguing that if the monster had any impact or charm, it was because he was simply this great, big, lumbering, inarticulate creature. Karloff never wanted the monster to talk and almost didn't do the film because of the direction that it was taking.
My father really objected to the monster being given speech. He felt it would take away from the original portrayal And I think he was wrong. It's one of the few sequels that really most film critics regard as surpassing the original.
So, director Whale picked a happy medium and had the studio psychiatrist select 44 very simple words to encompass the monster's vocabulary based on test papers of 10-year-old kids that were working at the studio at the time. The monster himself looked a little bit different in this film than he did in the first, once again created by genius makeup artist Jack Pierce, adding scars and shortening the monster's hair due to the after effect of the mill fire at the end of the first film, not to mention the fact that Boris Karloff sweated off more than 20 pounds while shooting this picture.
It was either a wool coat and heavy makeup or Ozempic, I suppose.
Pierce also co-created the bride's makeup with a very strong input from director Whale, especially regarding the bride's iconic hairstyle, which was based on Nefertiti, a queen of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt, achieved with a wave hairstyle called a Marcel wave over a wire frame to get the appropriate look, and according to Hollywood myth and legend, Elsa, being only 5'4" tall, was placed on stilts that made her well over 6 feet, and the bandages were supposedly so tight that she was barely able to move, with the crew literally having to carry her around the studio in between shots.
Dan had his stilts surgically implanted.
Don't let the cat out of the bag.
Super cool. Many of the props and set pieces for the elaborate and extremely creepy laboratory came directly from the production of the first Frankenstein film. And speaking of the props, all those super cool high voltage laboratory equipment props featured in pretty much every Frankenstein movie, all the way up to young Frankenstein, were constructed by a guy named Kenneth Strickfaden. Very creative guy, and just loved to tinker with all the high voltage equipment. He even gave all of his creations cute little names like the Neutron Analyzer, the Cosmic Ray Diffuser, and even Meg Sr. and Meg Jr. for the 2 large Tesla coils seen in the film, and he was really quite connected to his toys, so they say. During his entire life, all the equipment was stored literally right in his own garage.
Isn't that where you store your ex-wife?
Nope, I never made the same mistake once. Just one bride for me, and here's a very fun fact. When Mel Brooks was planning Young Frankenstein, he went directly to Mr. Strickfaden and wanted to rent all his stuff for his upcoming comedy, and he was told, yeah, no problem, just give me $1,000 rental fee, which Brooks immediately refused because he thought that was just a little bit too low and offered him $2,500 and a knish instead.
So all that super cool stuff we see in Young Frankenstein was...
all the super cool stuff that we saw in the original Frankenstein.
How cool is that, as they say?
Shooting for Bride of Frankenstein began on January 2nd, 1935, with a projected budget of about $290,000, which would be more like $7 million today, which was almost exactly the same budget that the original film had, with an estimated shooting schedule of about 36 days, all of which were shot on Hollywood sound stages, by the way. And get this, on the very first day of filming, Boris Karloff dislocated his hip. Just prior to filming beginning, Colin Clive broke his leg in a horse riding accident, so that's why you see Henry Frankenstein sitting most of the time. And after being 10 days over schedule, the final cost of the film came to almost $400,000, $100,000 over budget. The runtime of the film was shortened from 90 minutes to 75 minutes, literally right down to the last minute, only days before the film's scheduled premiere date.
Only 10 days over schedule? That really doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, it took you 10 days just to remember your lines. Warning, danger. Where's my dialogue coach?
Well, the director shut the entire production down for 10 days until actor Oliver Hedgie was available to shoot the scenes as the old man, who was actually kind of a pretty cool character. The music in this film was certainly unique, written by German conductor and composer Franz Waxman, who was specifically told to create an unresolved score, which creates the feeling or tension of incompleteness. So Waxman created 3 distinctive themes for the film, one for the monster, one for the bride, and one, of course, for Dr. Pretorius, with only 22 musicians used to record the entire score in a single 9-hour session. Bride of Frankenstein premiered on April 19th in San Francisco and went into general release on April 20th and was extremely profitable for Universal, earning approximately $2 million for the studio, which again would be almost $40 million today, with reviews at the time being mostly positive. Nominated for an Academy Award for Best Sound Editing, and over the years has gained universal acclaim by both critics and movie lovers alike. In 1998, the film was added to the United States National Film Registry, having been deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Let's wrap this thing up, shall we? Whatever happened to all that super cool laboratory equipment?
Well, Mr. Strickfaden eventually willed all of it to a guy named Ed Angle, the guy responsible for all the super cool lightning effects in the original Terminator movie. Coincidentally, Fred Barton's brother, Mark, who knew Ed Angle, was asked to create the lightning effects for Terminator 2. Mark used his homemade Tesla coil.
My uncle has one.
Angle eventually tried to sell all of his stuff for $1 million, but there were no takers, and believe it or not, all the equipment actually wound up at some school where pieces of it slowly got sold off to individual collectors, and Lord only knows where any of it is today. But if you know, let me know, because I definitely need more cool stuff in my garage. Bride of Frankenstein was not only an extremely beloved and popular installation into the entire Frankenstein series, but the first in a very long line of films dedicated to this nightmarish monster of the 1930s, including Son of Frankenstein, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Dracula vs. Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, The Curse of Frankenstein, The Revenge of Frankenstein, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive all about the Bride of Frankenstein, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig.
And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can always buy us a coffee. Link in the description.
And please feel free to stop back anytime as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters.
Well, hi there. I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in. I'm your host, RR.
Really? RR? You sound like a Zante misfit.
You've really arrived just in time because it's going to be a wild and swinging evening. A number of friends are here. Why don't you come on with me and I'll introduce you to some of our guests.
I want to introduce the guests tonight. You always get to do it. I'm tired of being just another pretty bubble around here. I have worth. I have merit. I have...
A big mouth. Very well. I guess you all know B9 by now. Longtime friend, confidant, and whiner.
Thank you. You remember Helga from Cologne? She moonlights at Amazon, putting heavy oversized items into undersized lightweight boxes.
It's a thankless job, darling. But Herr Bezos comes by daily and oils me up personally, yeah? Keeps my dry parts lubricated for my Only Robots page.
Far out. Tonight's guests via satellite are the Frankenstein monster, his lovely bride, and their therapist, Dr. Pretorius.
Tonight, since the Halloween season will soon be upon us, Robot and I will be paying tribute to the Universal Monsters.
Our first guest is the Frankenstein monster. His preferred pronouns are ugly and monster.
Call me Frank.
Frank, Bubby, how are you? Looking good. Can I get you a cigar?
Smoke. Good.
Hey, didn't the villagers set you on fire last week? Hell of a way to light a stogie.
Why were you so hot for your new bride? And be frank, get it?
Well, I was still smoldering from being set ablaze, and I ran into Pretorius at the Brown Derby. He said he could hook me up with this woman he dug.
It didn't look like she was too into you right from the get-go, old man.
Tell me about it. I show up to lab, and I'm all, ready for honeymoon suite.
Yeah, I remember that scene. Very touching. But she took one look at you and screamed like she saw her ex at Target.
She should no talk. I've seen better stitching on baseball.
You boys are being unfair to the poor girl. Let's bring her out and see what she's got to hiss. Fräulein, come and see here.
Welcome to the crib, baby. You look marvelous.
Whoa, I bet that hairdo gets great Wi-Fi.
Her hair says I'm electrocuted, but her face says I hate men.
She doesn't need a man, just some conditioner and a restraining order.
Your performance in Bride was stellar. I noticed you didn't have many lines, however.
Many? She didn't say a word. She just sat around and judged. She was basically the first goth chick.
It seems Frank was the first monster to get ghosted before Tinder.
I hear you guys finally got a divorce?
We were waiting for kids to die.
I hope you had a prenup.
Moving on, let's bring out direct from Transylvania, Dr. Septimus Pretorius. Show him some love.
Doctor, it's so good you could join us.
Yeah, welcome, Herr Doctor. Let me get you a Bud Light.
Oh, thank you. It's my only weakness.
I understand you've been counseling the young marrieds with their anger issues. How is that going? Any less tension between them?
Oh, well, it's been tough. But since I've been working with them, the only tension in their relationship is high tension. It's a win-win for them, you know. And the power company.
I understand their former therapist was a Ouija board.
I hope I can hit it off with the missus. After all, she's powered by lightning, and I'm powered with lithium. If we ever kiss, we take down the grid.
In the film, Frank said, "Love dead, hate living." What would he think of us?
In our case, the question is totally without meaning.
Did you hear that Bride and Frankie took a selfie and their iPhone exploded?
It was probably the facial recognition software.
I make her a playlist. She love music.
A playlist, huh? It was probably just static.
Well, friends, that's all the time we have for today's show. It's been a wild, wild evening, and I'm afraid now that it's over, so we'll have to say goodnight. And I'm glad you could join us. See you next time for more Robots After Dark.
Movies, music, and monsters.